Check. There you go. Okay, it's live. Bye, guys.
Okay. Okay, welcome everybody to season 7, episode 2 of Fights Clean Sex Dirty TV, keeping the sex dirty
beforehand. Yes, You're with Relationship Fun and Games, and as Raj said, is it our 7th season, and we're just delighted to dive into this topic again with you. We have some wonderful interviewees tonight. We're really excited. They're sexy, they're saucy, and oh my gosh, what a great laugh. What a great laugh. So thank you so much for joining us. We know that life is full and busy, but love is important. Relationship is important. It doesn't matter how great things are. If relationship isn't great, it can kind of ruin everything. And, you know, if things are great, you usually want to be able to share that with someone. And when things are difficult, if you've got your beloved in your corner, it just feels like you can get through anything. So love is a priority, and thank you, bravo, for making it a priority tonight. So in a moment, we're going to look at our official bios and all of that of our guests and tell you all of their background and how to find out more about them. But since we love love and we love stories about love, I want to first just invite Kevin and Celine to just let us know whether it be your relationship motto or how you met or something that just gives us and our audience just right away a sense of who the two of you are as a couple before we get into all your good advice tonight.
I've got a good idea. Okay. Can I go? Well, we have a PG-13 version and a hotter version of how we met. And because you're here tonight, we're gonna go into the hot one.
Let's do the hot one. It's right? Keeping the sex dirty, right?
We actually met 4 years ago at a sex party because we like to explore different things, and that's a place where we met. And the funny part is that we were in different relationships back then. But as soon as we saw each other, I remember seeing him across the room and be like, oh, who is this man? And we had a dance for about 2 years before we were able to finally be a couple, because we were in a relationship where it wasn't possible to be with one another, but we had attraction, we had acknowledged it, and every time we would see each other, we kind of would flirt, and there was definitely a fire going on. So it was so much patience there to be like, okay, this is gonna happen one day. And it finally did. And finally, you remember the first thing you said the first time we had sex? You told me in your head, you were thinking, finally, I'm having sex with Celine.
After 2 years of flirting.
Worth waiting for.
And it did not disappoint. You would think that maybe after all that buildup, it would be kind of like, wow, that was anticlimactic. Not at all.
Not at all. Worth waiting for, right?
Absolutely.
Beautiful. So in some ways, your relationship happened fast, and in some ways it kind of grew slowly.
Exactly.
Yeah, and we had several years before we were together to actually develop the friendship. And our other partners, we were all friends. And so, we did things together from time to time. It's not that we just ran into each other occasionally. We actually had time to develop a friendship and a relationship.
Nice.
Amazing.
To have that investment up front and have it for the long haul. This may go somewhere, maybe not, but investing at that foundation of friendship is quite wise.
And how about your relationship now? Where did you progress to now in your relationship?
I think the first thing that surprised us when we got together was how compatible we were. So from shifting from friendship to being together, we knew we had chemistry, but we didn't know that we would have compatibility. And so now it's I don't know, at least for me, every day I'm still like, wow, I can't believe like how compatible we are and how many things we do that are alike. So there's a lot of comfort in it, and of course there's safety, and yet we still have maintained the polarity and the spark and connection. So that's a nice play.
You know, the funny part to add to that is that after we were together, all of our friends said, oh yeah, we saw that from day one. You guys were the only ones that didn't see it.
News to me, right? Yeah. Well, we do have some other news to share. Raj, would you go ahead and share our screen again? And let's give people a little bit of background information about Celine and Kevin and where they can find out more. And then we're going to have 4 or 5 tips from them on how to keep the sex dirty before. Before that, Raj and I have 1 tip for you on how to keep the sex dirty before. And we're also going to share with you where you can find out more information. But first, let's get to those bios.
Okay, do you want to tell them just a little bit about Fights Clean Sex Dirty, where that came from?
Oh, where it came from. Fights, how to keep the fights clean and the sex dirty. Well, if it is your first time to the show, the day Raj and I got married, someone came up to us and said, you know, all you need to know for a great marriage is how to keep the fights clean and the sex dirty. And we thought to ourselves, okay, you know, save being nasty for your sex life, right? Because it's just so common for people to be nasty to each other over who didn't take out the trash or who did this or who didn't do that. But then we get vanilla, or we get on our phones and we turn our backs on each other when it comes to the bedroom. So you can see from our logo with the hearts, with the halo, and the heart with the devil horn. And we can say more about that on the other slide, yeah?
Sure.
But you can see one's got halos and one's got devil horns. Just know when to wear which. All right, so some of the wisdom tonight on knowing when to wear your halo and where to wear the devil horns. Celine is a holistic sexologist and a certified sexological body worker, offering unique body-based methodology, cracking clients open through pleasure. And I love even the way you say the word pleasure, Celine, and then you add your lovely giggle. You know, when you were talking to me about your 8-week course and saying, you know, it's 8 weeks of total pleasure. It's just like, even the way you say it just has pleasure in it. So you're embodying what it is that you're teaching. So it says here, like, this perfect line, the next line is perfect. A ridiculous amount of joy and laughter in everything she does. And wants every man and woman, I know you work with women too, to experience the power and strength and experience that sexual satisfaction that she deserves and craves, leading both men and women on how to unleash this sexual potential. And I love this idea of sexual potential. We had, you may know her, her name is Zipporah Kingsbury, and she was on our show, and she said, I don't care where you are in your sex life, I promise you, you're just scratching the surface. So, you know, you guys met at a sex party a little bit more advanced, perhaps. There might be some people listening that are like, whoa, sex party, I don't know about that. It doesn't matter where you are in your sexual relationship, I promise you, and I love that she said this, that there is so much potential. It just made me excited. I was like, it almost felt like having an orgasm for the first time when I was like, whoa, what was that? And there's a lot to discover there when she made that declaration of that potentiality. It just got me so excited, like, whoa, there's a lot more to explore here.
And we've actually experienced that.
We really have. We've been together 12 years now, and our sex life is better than it's ever been. We made a commitment about 3 years ago, when we had been married for 7 years. About the 7-year itch, we said, let's have an itch to have the best sex we've ever had, not to, you know, just inherit this 7-year itch about people getting antsy being with each other and looking around to end their relationship. So sexual potential, it's a great goal. It's an inspiring goal, one I encourage you all to be living into and to be getting support from Celine and others like her, so you can have mind-blowing sex, and not just occasionally, not just for a moment, but for hours. Although sometimes a little, we call it a little emergency sex quickie is is good too, but you can have mind-blowing quickie sex, right? So hopefully that wet your whistle and has gotten you a little bit more intrigued, and you can find out more about Celine at her website right here, CelineRemy.com, and we'll remind you of that URL at the end.
Okay, great. And just a little bit also about Kevin. Kevin is a men's coach, certified Tantra counselor,
Sorry about that.
and personal trainer.
Yeah.
I love that combination. And
Yeah,
a
Raj is
modern,
really into connecting the body and the mind. That's he's big into that.
Mhm. And a modern warrior who brings the heart and sword of truth to everything he does.
I think the sword,
The sword
of truth.
And
Yes.
he spent over 20 years developing and refining his manly skills and challenging his edge. I was talking about exploring and pushing that edge today with one of my clients, and I love that you're explicitly challenging that edge. There's so much more growth and development that we can have as men in the world, and then bringing that into our relationship. He's spent many years helping people train both their bodies and their minds, and he's passionate about helping men be deeply connected to their partner and truly feel their partner's energy so that they can have more and better sex. Yes, please.
More and more better.
You can learn more about Kevin at powerandmastery.com.
And while as individuals, they both have been working in these arenas and supporting men and women and having explosive, amazing sex, the two of them are now also working together, both personally as a couple and even professionally. I was talking to them before about some of their programs on erectile dysfunction and premature ejaculation, and they're working on something really good for January on sexual mastery. So once we've handled those two other issues, once we've done the problem focus, let's move on. You know, if you watched our show before, how much we like to be in the positive, forward focused. So certainly helpful to address those challenges and those hurdles, but I can't wait to see their sexual mastery program. And as a couple for 2 years, mind-blowing, multidimensional, out-of-this-world sex, and dedicated to creating a worldwide movement of true sexual empowerment. None of this weird stuff, dark stuff, but true, pure, clean, healthy sexual empowerment. You can just feel that between the two of them together. They love nature, adventures, music, and their motto is to inspire, uplift, and awaken. Thank you so much, you two, for being here tonight.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
We're so excited to be sharing all our best secrets and love.
Yes, we don't want these to be secrets, right? It's so sad to me when I see a couple who's fighting or having a difficult time, or, I'm working with a couple right now, and we were trying to make sure that, she went through October, but by October she hit the 1 year mark of not having sex with her beloved. And, it's not okay with her. It's fine if that's what people choose, but in this case it's not, and they feel really disconnected. So how can we, join together and be a support to as many couples as possible, that they're enjoying their day-to-day experience, they're enjoying their interactions, they're in a peaceful place, and they're in a passionate place, having great sex that keeps them playful and connected for years and years and years to come.
Totally. And Gabby, one thing I wanted to add about the sexuality part, and we'll go back to it when we share our tips, but I know we're talking about the mind-blowing sex, and it's not just one way. You got to remember that mind-blowing sex can look many different ways. And so if there's people watching that are like, oh shit, I don't know what they're talking about, or what is this? We said, like, every time they have like sex, they have a 10 out of 10. No, but we strive to aim for a 10, and we make even the 5 feel as good as a 10. So I just kind of wanted to put it out there so that you can feel all like included in the conversation.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be this pressure that every time, Raj and I, we have a commitment that every 90 days we have the best sex we've ever had. That doesn't mean that we're going to get all stressed out if and of course we're having sex more often than every 90 days, but that at least every 3 months it's the best it's ever been. So we're not looking back to the past and going, oh, remember when our sex life, remember that, honey, when it was enjoyable and exciting? No, we don't want to fall into that trap, which is common. The cliche is that things start hot, and we're just supposed to accept that it gets more predictable, and then he's going to do this, and then she'll do this, and then it gets boring. And we don't invest the time. Tonight's topic is how to keep the sex dirty before. So not only sometimes, we're not investing the attention when we're in the middle of it, if you can back up and invest that intention even before, and while you're kind of creating the culture and the dynamic, you can have a much more long-lasting and fulfilling impact. So,
yeah, and as you're mentioning, wherever you are on the spectrum of your sexual development, it's great. You know, Gabby and I, if we look at where we were even a couple of years ago, we're like in
maybe even a couple months ago.
Yeah. We're in a completely different realm, and I think, you know, if you develop a level of comfort with where you are now and have a desire to continue to explore, and as Kevin said in his bio, explore the edges, but in a way that works for both of you, it really is limitless where you can go, and it's perfectly fine where you are.
Yeah, we like to hold the balance of holding what one of our teachers has taught us, of all is well, like it's not a problem, like, and holding at the same time, even better if. So it's not, you know, that, you know, even if this something could be better, that doesn't mean we're saying that something's wrong with it as it is. It's just we're always engaged in, yeah, it's great, it's fine. And, you know, it'd be even better if we, you know, maybe if we tried this, that might be something new. So thanks, honey, for speaking to that in case you know, people are having some more challenging experiences in that realm.
I mean, you have your whole relationship to work on it. So
yeah. All right. So let's let people know a little bit about the form and function of the show here, just in terms of with the 8 weeks of the series, we alternate between each week between how to keep the fights clean and how to keep the sex dirty. So last week with Joshua and Katie, oh my gosh, they were so fun.
So fun.
Those fights clean before. Now we're doing sex dirty before, because it's not just whether the category is, you know, about arguing or about keeping it hot between you, but it's also about when do you apply those tools, because what you're going to do in the middle of a fight or middle of sex is very different than before or after. So it's helpful to have these tools to know what can you do at precisely the time when you need it the most.
Yeah, and it's really amazing the ease that it can create for you when you actually know what to do, or have some guidelines, some tools. Otherwise, you're just kind of like, I don't know what to do. And that can create anxiety and separation. And if with these tips and tools, you're going to be empowered to like have huge breakthroughs and even small breakthroughs. One of the things we love about doing this show is that we always learn things, and then our sex life in the, the nights.
These interviews have been
very, very good to us.
And so we want to be very, very good to you as well, the audience who is taking your time to learn and to grow in your relationship. So for joining us live, if you are watching this live, if you're on Zoom, just go ahead and put into the chat that you would like to receive the cheat sheet. You can also on Facebook, but if you're watching it on Facebook Live, you can put into the comments, yes, send me the cheat sheet. You can also send us an email if you'd like to do it that way to Gabby, Gaby, at relationshipfunandgames.com. And May, if you would, go ahead and put my email into the chat, into the comments there, so people can see it and copy it if that's easier for them. But we'll give you this free guide here, this cheat sheet on how to keep the fights clean and the sex dirty. There's 8 tips for keeping the fights clean, summarized just down into 1 sentence. And there's 8 tips for keeping the sex dirty, also down to 1 sentence. So you got a quick, when you don't know what to do, you've got this map to go to and anchor, like, okay, what can I do in this moment? Okay, so that's keeping the sex dirty before. Now, Raj and I have just one tip for you tonight, but if you want to dive deeper into this topic, you can go ahead and look on our website. You can look in our blog and look for Mastering the Mini Seductions, Building Trust for Better Sex, or one of our quick tip video clips, Hot by Habit, for some more resources and support in this area. But tonight, we're going to talk about initiate inertia. Yes.
So initiate inertia is just about doing something, anything. Because when you stop doing something, it takes a lot more to actually start doing something. It's like,
so it's not that this quote here, things in motion tend to stay in motion, things at rest tend to stay at rest. Do something,
do something. Yeah.
Get the ball rolling.
And so some of the tips here under initiating inertia are tend to your garden or weeds will grow, right? We all know that. We actually were just away for a couple of weeks in New York City, and I take great pride in the plants and flowers we have out on our decks. And me being away from those for 2 weeks, even just 2 weeks, you know, they're not at their full beauty. So
same thing in
relationship,
the same thing
to your relationship. Just a little bit, like even if it's just, you know, just kiss on the neck,
that's planting a seed. Yeah. Removing a weed might be like taking a worry or concern that I have and saying, hey honey, don't worry about that, got that in my calendar, I'm going to handle that tomorrow. You know, so you're cultivating the garden of your relationship with these seeds and weeds, removing the weeds and planting the seeds. Otherwise, it's going to be kind of a messy, ugly, stressful, awkward place. So look in your own relationship right now. What are the seeds? What would you like to put in? A little, maybe it's not, it's saying hello and goodbye, like kissing hello and goodbye. Some couples just, it's so busy and they leave. Raj and I have made a game out of never leaving the house or coming home to the house without giving some form of intimacy or connection. So we're always, not like we need to, but we want to. We like to keep that relationship and that anchor. So look in your own relationship for maybe what you want to put in, and if there's anything that you want to take out, any of those weeds that you want to take out, especially in your sexual dynamic in your relationship. Maybe one of those weeds is being awkward, and you could, bring some play and being silly to it. But just the whole point of this tip of initiated inertia is just to experiment, experiment, and experiment. And this second note here about let's get personal, just to personalize this, to make sure that this is not just a general tip. I asked you just a moment ago to look in your own relationship. The more you can personalize this tip, the tips that Celine and Kevin are about to give us, and really look at specific, tangible applications, that's what's really going to make the difference. Because I can give you the tip, but unless it actually applies to something real in your relationship, it's not going to make a difference.
Yeah, so you can take this tip and go make it personal by thinking, what's one thing we could do each day to actually initiate inertia with each other?
And even if it's not an each day, like a habit thing, can I make a list of 25 turn-ons and turn-offs, and ask my beloved, hey, are you willing to do the same? So that well in advance of even a seduction happening, you're having a conversation about what is sexy, what's not sexy. Like Raj and I learned that one of his top turn-ons is one of my turn-offs. He likes a lot of outfit changes. I don't like him to leave the space. So we're in the middle of getting it on and he's like, oh, my button-down blue shirt. And he's got this whole scenario in his head and he leaves. I'm like, but what? So now we have a basket of costumes that we keep by the so he can have his variety and I have him not leave anywhere. So, but we didn't make each other wrong. I didn't make him wrong for like, oh, you want all these costumes, or him for like, what's the problem if I jump up for a moment? We learned how to bring it as a chocolate and peanut butter by just really kind of engaging and playing this game of doing something.
Yeah, and along the lines of imperfect inspired action and initiating inertia, I'm trying to think of a good physical world analogy. I have a master's degree in engineering, so I get what inertia is. But when your car battery dies and the car's stuck, and then you get some people and they start pushing it, and after it starts going, it starts just rolling. But initially, it's really hard. You're pushing hard to get it going. So what you can do is think about in your relationship, like the analogy, what can I do today to keep the momentum going?
Keep the momentum going. Keep
going.
The motor running. Yeah. Get out on the highway. Yeah, we call them easy access on-ramps to intimacy. You don't want a long, windy, uphill on-ramp to get to an intimate place. You want to be cultivating this in advance. Now, I want to say one last piece here about imperfect inspired action and a game worth playing, and then we're going to dive in. We've got 4 or 5 really juicy tips from Celine and Kevin in a moment. But this part about imperfect inspired action, let it be okay if it's awkward. Let it be okay if it doesn't go well the first time or the 15th time. But it's a game worth playing. It's a game worth failing and learning. It's not a failure if you're learning. Well, that didn't work. Well, what might work better next time? So just keep engaging in this playful nature of it without being attached to the outcome, and let it be imperfect. Just do something to get that motor running. Has this shown up now? Kevin and Celine, you've been together as a couple for a couple of years, so you're still a little bit in that honeymoon, but I know, like, when I talk to a lot of couples, they find that, they'll have some sex or really sexy, interaction, and that kind of stirs it up for a bit of time. And then it might be they're busy or traveling or something happens, and it kind of, you get a little bit less sexual, and you kind of have to bring that energy back again. So I'm not sure if that's showing up yet for you, but how does initiate inertia show up, and any tips you would have for our audience in this realm? Anything to add to this one?
Can I start with this one?
Sure.
I love your garden analogy, because one of the things that we say all the time is, if you're not growing, you're dying, right? So everything in life needs care. It all needs to be tended. And your relationship is really no different than that. So it's super important to make sure that you're keeping it going all the time. And one of the things that we really love to teach people, and I'm sure we'll get into more as we start to talk about our tips, but it's that, you know, having hot sex isn't about 4 o'clock on Friday, all of a sudden, boom, we go from 0 to 100 miles an hour. It's about keeping a constant level of turn on throughout every single day. And yeah, we've only been together for a few years, but we're busy. We have multiple businesses that we're running and life stuff comes up, and it's really easy to get distracted. And so the things that we're going to share with you today are the things that we do ourselves. Like, this is stuff that's coming from our own personal experience on how we we stay turned on all the time so that when it is time to make love, we are ready to go.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
do share some of the tips, like same when somebody leaves or come back home, there's always a kiss and an acknowledgement. Like, you got to stop what you're doing. Whoever is home has to stop and kind of be like the dog greeting the other, you know? we totally apply that. And then also in terms of like acknowledging when sex isn't as great anymore. And that we do a lot because, yes, we have experienced that too, because we live together, we work together, we share an office. So it's not always super hot. And so when you're like, wow, it's been like 5 days and it's like we're not feeling the same, or acknowledging, you know, the last few times we've made love, it wasn't as great. What can we do? And so this has been very profound for us, because when you acknowledge it rather than having that elephant in the room, and that you both take responsibility, then there's no like right or wrong. Like you were saying, well, I'm not blaming him, I'm not blaming myself. I'm just saying, okay, this is what's happening. How can we course correct? And that's really what makes a difference. And so that's really the same thing, but not waiting until it's too late, where we're like, okay, this is it. We don't wait 2 weeks to pull out the weeds, right?
That's great.
Steady wins the race, as they say, right? Or we often say a little bit of intention, attention, and action spread out over time not only goes a very long way, it actually takes it out of the work realm and into the play realm, so that it's not like we need to talk, you know, about our relationship or about our sex life. It's like, oh, that draining, you know, that drop in your stomach of like, oh, we got to have a talk now, as opposed to this little by little, you know, conversations here and there, engaging in how to keep that dynamic alive and hot between you.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Beautiful. All right.
Yeah.
Well, let's go ahead, Raj, and go to there, because we have some great bullet points ideas, and you aren't restricted to jump, you know, go through these all in order. And, you know, as we've said before, this is more like a couple's, you know, double date dinner party, but we're just so grateful for your wisdom and your ideas, and really appreciate you being here to share with these tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just
Okay, so let's just bring that slide up. Here we go. All right.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's why, Raj. Go back one. I apologize. We didn't do the action option.
We did the action
That's
option.
the problem. That's why it was out of order.
Got it.
All right, ready?
All right, action option.
Action option. Dun, 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 dun,
If you don't recognize that, that's a Mission Impossible.
Mission Impossible theme. And it's not impossible, but it is a mission. And it is listed here as an action option because autonomy is so important in growth and development. You have to have the freedom to choose. But if you don't take action, then nothing really changes. So this is your action option, just to give you some specific tangible things you can do to take these ideas that we've shared with you and put them into play in your own relationship today.
Awesome. So the first action option step here is to ask yourself what's at rest in your sexual relationship that you want to put into motion right now. So whether that's flirting or touching, massaging, snuggling, kissing, whatever it is, look at that, name it. Sexting.
Yeah,
so
we've been together 12
things.
years. We've never really sexted, but I started sending some sexy texts to Raj this last week. So it's saying our relationship is going new places. I'm like, hey, we've never done this before. You can also write down 3 ideas on how to get started, put it into action. Write down 3 of the pitfalls. It's very helpful to look at what's going to get in the way, because often if you remove the obstacles, you can naturally propel forward. So it might be how busy your schedule is, or having a place with some privacy. So look at what some of those pitfalls are and have some ideas, 3 ideas then, on how are you going to keep in motion what you want to have in motion. Remember that quote from Inertia, things in motion tend to stay in motion, things at rest tend to stay at rest. So don't overwhelm yourself.
Yeah, so one of the things you might notice is that
Just
things...
pick one idea is what I was going to
Okay,
say,
pick one idea. Yeah, so pick one idea, and then one of the things that you should expect is things might get in the way. And sometimes when those things get in the way, we get frustrated and we get resigned, and then we stop trying. And so just know that things will come up, and then you get to be like the ninja and navigate whatever it is that comes up. Just expect it rather than being surprised by it.
Yes, so
deal.
helpful. Yeah, when people think that maybe I'm in the wrong relationship. No, relationships are just hard. I can't tell you how many times we see someone leave a relationship and go to the next one and do exactly the same thing. So it's not to say that you know every relationship people should stay in. Only you and in your gut you can really know. But it's important that you actually start to look at the transformation that's available here in this relationship before you just abandon ship. Okay, so I said that part. So then you want to pick, I was saying don't overwhelm yourself. I know you had tapped me. I thought you were jumping into this part. So.
I was talking about the potential pitfalls.
I know that now. I get that now. I just misread the tap, the squeeze under the table.
It's like a baseball game.
The hand signals. Yeah. But what I was going to say is don't overwhelm yourself by having to do, you're listing 3, but you're brainstorming. So just pick one simple thing that you can do and to put in place in the next hour, what's something you can do in the next 24 hours and something you can do in the next week. And again, when you're watching this, don't just have this go in one ear and out the other. Personalize it right now. Send a text to yourself. Put something in your calendar. What's one thing that you can do right now? Not mandatory, full autonomy. It's an option, but we encourage you or inviting you to take it. So make sure then that you don't, our brain is designed to forget. We go from the kitchen to our bedroom and forget what we went into the bedroom for. So write it down, put a post on your bathroom mirror, put a reminder in your phone, put it on the fridge. I love using the fridge. And then take those actions. Make them baby steps if need be, but just get in there, get on the court and start playing. As we say with Initiate Inertia, do something. Awesome. So thanks for all of your listening. And that should then transition us into this great slide here where we have all of Kevin and Celine's. So feel free here. I've got your slide up and we'll pull off of the slide and so we can go with the video with you, but feel free to jump around or go through this in any order that you'd like to share with us tonight.
Awesome. I want to jump first. Can I?
But I wanted to.
First of all, well done. Well done that both of you have checked in with each other each time when you've wanted to go first. So really well done. Nicely modeled.
All right. Well, I got permission. I'm going to jump not like linearly. So one of my favorites is the regular attention. And we call it like kissing, cock grabbing, ass groping. And this is really one that I want for everybody to put into place, really. I'm from a European background. I'm from Switzerland. And I have to say that we do probably more PDAs and things are just a little bit more in the open when it comes to affections. And I was very surprised how prude most people in America are. And there's very little examples of people, like many people haven't seen their parents kissing or being amorous towards one another. And so I think it's so important that we are example for other people, whether you have children, whether you have friends, family. And so these little things, of course, obviously, whichever one you choose in front of other people, maybe the cock grabbing, you could like do it just when it's the two of you. But if you're like me, I'll do it at random places, like when we're at the grocery store. I mean, it's kind of my most favorite thing is how can I do this in public without getting caught? But it's just kind of acknowledging that you are sexual beings. So noticing like if your partner likes to have their ass groped or like a breast touch or a certain way of being kissed, and like every day do it, give that regular attention. We even have like a special code, like
there's a code.
There's a code.
There's a code.
Because we like games just like you, Gabby and Raj.
I love it.
And so you know, like I really like French kissing, and like with whole tongue and like passionate. And often Kevin just did a little peck, and I was like, I want this more. But instead of like complaining and stuff, I was like, how can I get this, you know? So I was like, I explained to him the kind of kissing I like. He tried it on me, and I was like, this is it. This is exactly how I love it. And so we came up with a code where I go to him and I say, my nose is cold. He knows the code to kiss me that exact same passionate.
Yay, my nose is cold.
That's
Nice
the code.
modeling.
You know, one of the
That's
things
the
that I really love about Celine is that she knows how to ask for what she wants. And this isn't a tip that's listed on the bullet points there, but she had a need for a different kind of kissing. And so she expressed that need, and we said, okay, how can we make that happen? And so now we made a fun game out of it because she's got this code, and I'll be rushing from one thing to the next, and I'll be like, I got to get to the office. I got to send this email. And she'll go, my nose is cold. And I know, like, I stop everything I'm doing right then and there. And I like grab her, push her up against the wall, and give her the kiss that she's looking for.
And the bonus is that for
That's
me,
really great.
it keeps me totally turned on. Like, it's kind of like it fulfills my erotic fantasy in my mind. And so I get to ask as often as I want, as many times as I want. And so that keeps that sexual energy going. So whatever that is for you, and I like to call him a piece of meat sometimes, and just sexy piece of meat. I just want to grab him, acknowledging that really the sexual beingness and just like the body parts that are associated with it. So that kind of is probably my most favorite tip, and that's the one I want to jump in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's perfect because it's like we talked about before, about sort of keeping that constant state of being turned on. And that's one really good way to do it. Should we go on to number 2?
Go for it.
In no particular order. Well, I was kind of laughing in my brain because much like Raj, I have a background in engineering. So my mind is like, we must start from the top and then go down. And of course, Celine goes right to the juicy stuff. So just to satisfy myself, I'm going to go back to the top a little bit here. The first bullet point it says ensure man cave and self-care time to lower stress levels. And the reason why we put that first is just because everything, it doesn't matter if it's communication, whether you're trying to keep the fights clean or the sex dirty, it doesn't matter. Everything is an inside job, and you can't show up fully 100% for your partner if you yourself are running on empty. And so that's something that we really, really notice about ourselves, is that like, if we start to get a little impatient or we start to, snap at the other one, it probably means that we are overloaded. So for us, it's like making sure that we have the time to take care of ourselves. And there's some great books. John Gray wrote a great book on this topic specifically, and he calls it man cave time for the men. Right. And it's very stereotypical, right? Oh, the man cave, this and that. But that actually is the primary way that we de-stress and the primary way that we rebuild our testosterone levels. So if we're running low and we're depleted and our testosterone is low, how are we supposed to grab her and throw her up against the wall and give her the kiss that she wants? We're depleted. So we need to make sure that we take that time for ourselves. And the same is absolutely true for women. They just go about it a little bit different way.
And that's more for us into like the self-care, whether it's like do a facial, face mask, a shower, or like socialize with other women, talk, for me, my most favorite is baking. So I just put on my sexy apron in my kitchen. It's my magic apron. And I just bake something fantastic, some muffins, or come up with a really new creative meal for us. And that really helps me to lower my stress level. The one important thing here is that when I know that Kevin needs that time for himself, I leave him alone. Understanding that he's always going to come back to me, but I don't it's not about going there every 20 seconds or 20 minutes. Hey, honey, are you done with your little cave time here? Connect with me, If the door is closed, and usually he'll let me know, and if that's a day where I'm needy, I might ask, how much time do you need? so that I know there's an end to it, and I can relax, and I can be like, okay, he needs 20 minutes, or he needs 2 hours by himself. So I'm going to give him that. And so that's me giving him that gift. And then I know he's going to come back to me fully rejuvenated and totally loving.
Beautiful, rejuvenated. It's so, so true. If you're not resourced, you're going to end up taking it out on your beloved. I wrote down what you said here. You can't show up your partner if you're running on empty. Make sure to make time to take care of yourself so you can show up for your relationship. So important. You got to put on your oxygen mask. Otherwise, you are going to start snapping at people. And that can be challenging. Life is full. There's so much we have going on. So to prioritize that can be challenging. Knowing what's the fastest, easiest way to reset yourself. Like Raj learned from doing some personality typing that taking a shower was one of the best things for him to do, because his personality type needs something that is closed loop, meaning has a beginning, middle, and end. It's physical sensory, and it has something to do with water. In my case, an emotional reset for my personality type is I need to be able to see patterns and chaos without any emotions. So doing a puzzle allows me to get the hit of like, oh, that goes with that, but without me getting hooked into any emotional stories. So just, it's not maybe learning about your personality type, but it might be just generally knowing what are the little things that I can do to resource myself. Mm-hmm. Close my eyes, count to 10, and take 3 deep breaths, whatever it may be, so that you can then show up. Because otherwise it's kind of devolving and, well, they're cranky. Don't take your stress out on me. And, and then forget sex. It's not even that you're not going to have sex. You're just, not even have a good time together.
Yeah.
Totally. Beautiful.
And then also just on the little geeky thing here, when it comes to lowering your stress level, your oxytocin levels as a woman rise up. And in order to have an orgasm as a woman, you have to have a high level of oxytocin. So think about it, like this is more than just self-care. This is about you having mind-blowing orgasms. So when you're like doubting, can I give myself permission to do this self-care practice? Yes, because you want to have a really great orgasm, and you need to boost up your oxytocin level for that to happen. So give yourself permission.
Yes, give yourself permission. I love that. Say more about that. With women with the oxytocin level.
So the oxytocin level comes, when you are being touched, or like when you do all this self-care, like communicating with other friends. So us as women, that's what raises our, like that feminine component within us. And there's been studies, and on top of my head, I can't remember who studied that, but there's been studies that have showed a correlation between the level of oxytocins in the body of a woman and the level of orgasms that she's experiencing. So that means that if you have very low oxytocin, it might be really hard for you to orgasm. If you have a higher oxytocin level, you could have higher levels of arousals and orgasms in the body.
Beautiful. I didn't know that. I didn't know that there was a connection between oxytocin levels and orgasm. So that if you have a low oxytocin, it's difficult to have a strong orgasm. So all the more reason for the beforehand, because, as you said, hug and touch and even eye gazing can raise oxytocin levels. So if you're doing that regularly and keeping your oxytocin level, you're not at this deficit and now having to create that when you want to be intimate with someone.
Totally.
Absolutely. And, on the guy's side, it's a similar correlation, but yet a different chemical. So stress depletes our testosterone levels, but it's testosterone that gives us that drive and that desire. When our testosterone is really flowing through our body, we look at our woman and we're like an animal, stalking its prey. But we can't be that when our testosterone levels are plummeting because of stress and other things. But yes. The more we can lower our stress levels, the more we can increase our testosterone levels and really be that masculine man stalking his woman.
Yes.
I want to
essentially, you lower your stress, so you chemically have more space to get turned on.
Totally.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah, and you've probably experienced that, taking the chemicals out of the picture for a second, just like you can feel it, right? Like I feel like having sex when I'm refreshed, rejuvenated, and I don't even want to look at anybody when I'm exhausted and stressed out. Exactly. It's like, don't touch me. Exactly. Yeah, that's great. I love that there's that chemical correlation to that. It's awesome.
Mhm.
I'm a very practical person, so I always like getting that kind of information. It's like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense then. Yeah, I know you're like the chemicals aside, but
No,
I'm
I
just
mean
very
both. It's
practical.
just
Yeah,
that it's interesting to note that there is a chemical affiliation association with it, and not even knowing that, you probably have experienced that for yourself as a man. That's all that I'm saying.
yeah.
Yeah. Great. So how about a path of appreciation or one of your other tips
I want to
here?
go to
These
the
are
last
awesome.
one.
Oh, me too.
Jump
Yeah.
forward.
This is
Jump
the
forward.
juicy one right here.
I want to make sure we get to that one. Okay, can I start on it?
Of course.
Well, thank you very much. So this is kind of one of our favorite, the random and spontaneous acts of sex, and with no agenda and no goal of completion. So Kevin will go more in depth with that no agenda and no goal of completion from the male's perspective. But what we love is about, yes, you can have sex for hours, but you can also have sex for just a few minutes. Like those quickies can help to reset. And what's amazing is that sometimes you just want to have that connection of like, hey, I just want to give him a blowjob, or he wants to receive a blowjob. And after 3 minutes, you might be done and you got the need fulfilled, and now you can move on and go do something else. And so by keeping those little like random spontaneous acts, it keeps the energy going. It keeps you constantly turned on, but knowing, especially as a woman, that there is no goal or agenda of completion. That means if I'm giving him a hand job or a blow job, I don't have to go at it until he ejaculates. Or if he's giving me oral, or we're having a quickie, that we don't have to make it until one of us has an orgasm. We can just make it until we're like really turned on, and then go our separate ways.
Absolutely. And this is so key. This is something I work with men with all the time, because it really goes against what they've been taught. So many men think that once you get me started, once I have an erection and we start, you got to finish me. How many times have we heard that in the past? That is absolutely not true. So a couple of things. In our programs, which we'll talk about probably more towards the end, in our Master Your Ejaculation and our sexual mastery programs, we really work with men, teaching them how to separate their orgasm from their ejaculation. And that can be a big key. But even that aside, the point is that this isn't about completing an agenda. This is just about stoking the fire. This is about keeping that fire between the two of you alive. There can't be any agenda. There can't be we have to finish. Because if that's what happens, it's going to, one, add stress. It's going to add maybe even some performance anxiety on her side or even his side. And we want to take all of that out. This is supposed to do the opposite. It's lowering the stress. It's increasing the turn on. So just fun little things, whether it's in the kitchen, just coming up behind her and giving her a breast massage, or, sometimes I'll be sitting at my desk working and I'm like really intent, like I'm working on all this stuff and I'm a little bit stressed, and she'll just pull my chair out and she'll give me a random blowjob, and just that like minutes. And I feel totally reset. And not only am I reset and feeling like, wow, now I can actually get more work done more efficiently, but when the workday is done, I'm like, where is she? Where did she go? She upstairs? She downstairs? I'm like in that constant state of being. It's really,
we have another couple. We have another couple that we interviewed that called it 5 minutes of anything. And so someone would say, can I request 5 minutes of anything? And the person would accept or not accept. And they're like, I'd like 5 minutes of massage, or 5 minutes of kissing, or 5 minutes of this. And when the 5 minutes are up, there's no obligation to continue or, of any of that dynamic. And then the other person gets to ask their turn. Okay, it's my turn for 5 minutes of anything. And so in, 5 to 10 minutes, you have this little game of connection that doesn't need to go anywhere. It could, but it doesn't really need to. That's not the point. I love that, and it's like you feel like not to have a timer on, but it's like, when I'm like, yeah, I got 5 minutes. When it's like, no, I don't have like a half an hour. It's just, it makes it a little fun, playful game.
Totally. Totally.
And
beautiful. Yeah, that random and spontaneous. We had another couple that call that emergency sex. which is a little different. But emergency sex was when you've been together a long time, and so maybe the impetus to jump into it doesn't happen quite as often as it used to. So when it does, you never want to take that for granted. And so if somebody was attracted and turned on, they'd say, "Hey, emergency sex." It's like, whoa, I'm getting pretty turned on here. We want to take advantage of this, even if it's a quickie. And last 4th of July, Raj pulled that one out. We had guests coming, and he said, "Emergency sex." And I said, "We have guests coming in 5 minutes."
No, you said 5 minutes.
Yeah,
and
he
I said, "Give me 4."
Yeah, he said, "All I need is 4."
Yeah.
And then all I needed was 3. It does.
Yeah. So random and spontaneous. It doesn't have to be the end all be all. It kind of, goes along with the initiate inertia. Like, just get it started with something and see where that juiciness goes for later on.
And
Beautiful.
it's not just about really wanting it either, because sometimes he might ask for something. Am I in the mood to give him a blowjob or to get penetrated for 3 minutes? Not specifically, but it's also important to not only have sex when you feel like it, because if you wait until you feel like it, you can wait a really, really long time. So having a practice that sex is one of the shared things you do together and that you have an agreement to make it happen often. And if you're not fully in the mood, you can acknowledge, I'm not really in the mood, but let's do it. Because that also reframes. It's really important to have that you don't have to be turned on to have sex. You don't have to be in the mood. That sex, you can create the mood by choosing to connect deeply with one another.
Exactly. And the great thing about...
Oh my God, say that again. You don't have to be in the mood. You can connect by creating that time together. Oh, I'm writing that one down. That's
something
beautiful.
about you can create the mood by choosing to connect with deeply with one another.
Yes,
exactly.
Beautiful.
That's the great thing about sex is that most times, and as long as you allow it, even if you're not in the mood, sex will get you in the mood. And that's the problem with a lot of couples. They say, I have to be in the mood to have sex. When often it's the other way around. It's like we start to have sex and now we're in the mood.
That's amazing.
Absolutely. Well, as they say in so many other areas in life, fake it till you make it, right? And now, obviously, we're not talking about pretending you're attracted to someone when you never are. I love what you said, acknowledge that I'm not in the mood. And let's create the mood, let's create this connection. But you're just acknowledging it and creating it anyways. And how wonderful that 2 years into your relationship that the two of you have that you don't have to wait to have this lull or to have this kind of, not be as often, that you guys can really, you're creating a culture of generating your sex life right from the get-go.
It's great.
Yeah, not waiting for that turn on to come bite you in the butt. Because the reality is we're also busy and distracted. It's not like turn on is chasing us down.
No.
Needs to be cultivated.
It's waiting.
Yeah,
that's great. It's great.
Write that down. It's not like turn on is chasing us down.
That one's a good one. I love the path of appreciation, Raj, the one you talked about earlier. This is kind of one of my personal favorite that I brought into our relationship. And I think it works really well for women and for people that like words of appreciation to feel loved. And what that is all about is it's a game we created where I'm like looking at Kevin and say, tell me 3 things you like about me. And then he just goes on and tells me 3 things. Sometimes I even ask for 17 things.
The number changes frequently.
It does, because you want to not keep it the same. But asking for hey, tell me 3 things you like about me. Sometimes is 3 things you love about our relationship. So whatever you put your appreciation onto, we all long to be seen and appreciated, especially as women. So when you get that need fulfilled, what happens? You blossom. When somebody gives you a gift of seeing you and appreciating you, usually it cracks you open. And again, that keeps you in that space to be like, I want to make love with that being. Plus, it maintains that every time I think about 3 things I love about Kevin, I focus on the things I love about him rather than the fact that, I don't know, he didn't take the trash out this day, or he didn't do this or that. We constantly focus only on what we choose, which is the appreciation, the things we love and appreciate about one another. And that's a game changer.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And,
Awesome.
and we want to stress too that like this isn't just about the female getting her needs met. This game works both ways, in both directions. It really does. And I really want to credit Celine for bringing that to our relationship, because while in past relationships, you know, I may have shared those things, it wasn't as regular. Like we actually make this a regular practice pretty much every
Daily.
day. Yeah. And it's just like,
I'm so glad you say this, because it's the habits. Oh, sorry. With the internet, it cut out for a second. It sounded like you were done talking and then sped you up. Go ahead.
No, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Please continue.
Oh yeah. Just, that's all right. That's all right. I know I'm actually noticing the time was 6:25. I wanted to just see if there was anything else that you guys wanted to say about your tips. We want to give people a chance to find out on how to find out more about you and what else you're offering in the future. But any other last thoughts on how to keep the sex dirty before?
Well, you know, the last bullet point, and we'll just cover it super quick, is speaking your partner's love language. We won't go into all the love languages, but I would just
yes.
that everybody has a certain way that they like to be touched, or maybe it's they want to hear certain words. Whatever it is that is their way of really feeling you and your appreciation, speak to them in that language. If they love touch, but all you ever do is say words, they're not going to really feel it. So find out, ask your partner how it is that, what is their love language? What do they like? And then give it to them.
And if you don't know, you can
yeah, because
internet. I was saying, if you don't know about it, you can go on the 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. And I know you guys teach that too. So you probably have your own material that you can share for people to figure it out.
Well, on that one, that's just a great anchor to point people to with those 5 love languages. Raj and I are fortunate that our number 1 love language is the same, essentially, as acts of service, right? Mm-hmm. And for those of you watching, we'll just say the 5 real quick. It's touch, acts of service, words of praise, quality time, and gifts. Mm-hmm. And we all like all of these, but we have some that we are much more comfortable with. Or enjoy more. And so it's really helpful to find out, how does your beloved want to be loved? So I'm really glad that you brought these up with the love language, especially as it applies towards sex as well. Like, what's your beloved's love language sexually, you know?
Yeah, I never really thought of that, like bringing it into that realm specifically. That's awesome. So we have lots of fun tips.
I know. Let's apply the love language, you know, acts of service to our sex life, honey.
Totally.
Ooh.
Cell phone in at night and brings me a glass of water and leaves a glass of water sitting by my bed every night, and it just melts me. I just love it so much. Mm-hmm. So thank you, Celine and Kevin, so much for those great tips. You know, I've done a little wording on some of these just to summarize them here. I've got, you know, increasing the self-care and lower the stress to increase your turn on. Taking the path of appreciation to blossom. Speak your partner's love language, regular attention, affection, and attraction, and then random and spontaneous acts of sex with no agenda. So we'll be putting those all into one little quote meme box and post it on social media. So for those of you who are watching the show and you just want a little physical reminder of what some of these tips are, we'll have these summarized for you and put into one little image you can put on your phone, print it out, put it on your refrigerator. Because remember, our brain is designed to forget. We go from the kitchen to the living room and we completely forgot what we went in there in the first place.
Even with the good stuff, like sex.
Even with the good stuff. But especially if it's an area where we're confronted and not feeling so natural, then we're really going to forget it. So we'll make sure to give you those summaries. So keep an eye out for that. If you're on our email list, you can get them sent to you that way. Otherwise, you can look for them on social media. But we so appreciate your time. We want to show you where you can find out more information from CelineRemy.com and PowerAndMastery.com for Kevin. And so we encourage you to reach out. As we mentioned, they have a wonderful program for both erectile dysfunction and premature ejaculation. And in January, they'll be coming out with a new program on sexual mastery. I did put a note in my calendar to ask them when that's coming out. I want to know more about it. But let's also let you know, speaking of what's coming up next week with our third episode of the season. Whoops.
Well, first of all, if you want to get our relationship reset kit, you can just go to this URL down at the bottom here, Relationship Fun and Games, get-free-gifts-made.
I forgot about the free gift. Thanks,
That's
honey.
right. And you'll get our relationship reset tip 4-part mini course. Some of our top tips and tools there to keep the fights clean and the sex dirty. You also get our How to Keep the Fights Clean and Sex Dirty free guidebook. And access to this show, the Fights Clean Sex Dirty TV show, and the replays.
So if you want those sent to you, we can go ahead and do that and get you in the loop on relationship fun and games. But next week,
so next week, we're going to be looking at keeping the fights clean as it starts, just as you're on-ramping into that during phase of a fight, what you can do to pull out of a full-blown argument or fight. So it takes no effort at all to get into an argument. However, it does take effort to avert them.
Yes.
You can probably relate.
Yes.
You can make a mountain out of a molehill or a molehill out of a mountain. Your choice.
Yes. So we're going to be looking at how to back away from the argument, or as Raj calls it, don't take the bait, right? And how we can adjust as it's starting to ease on back. And we met this awesome couple, Jamie and Clara, at gosh, what a DJ Clara is as well. And what a coach Jamie is. I've spoken to both of them, even off the playa, and I'm just super inspired by what they have to offer. So come find out more about how to keep the fights clean as it starts next week, a week from tonight.
Great, and we'll just flash up these URLs for Kevin and Celine one more time. So be sure to check out what they have to offer. As you've gotten a little bit of a taste tonight, they have awesome tips with regards to how to keep the sex dirty.
Yes, so thanks everyone for joining us tonight, whether it's live or on replay. We celebrate your efforts for having a playful, peaceful, passionate relationship, and we're committed to making it as easy and accessible as possible. Feel free to reach out and let us know what you're struggling with or what you're celebrating and how we might support you and blow more wind in that sail. And Celine and Kevin, thank you so much for your wonderful insights and your amazing laugh and presence with the two of you on the show tonight.
Oh, you're welcome.
You're welcome.
Our pleasure.
That's right. We've been groping each other secretly. You just can't see it on the camera.
As it should be.
Yes, and we were like, as you
each
can
other.
see, when we've gone to screen share and people can no longer see you, we're like, where did they go out of the screen? Maybe it's one of those 2-minute connection moments that we're creating. Well,
Thanks again for bringing your wonderful tips, your fantastic energy, and your sexiness to the show tonight.
do stay on the line, Celine and Kevin, for just one moment. We'll stop the recording and then we'll wrap up together. But thanks everyone so much for joining us tonight. We wish you well. Here's to you having a playful, peaceful, passionate relationship. Good night.
And hope to see you next week, same time, 5:30 Pacific. And we'll be talking about how to keep the fights clean as it starts.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.